Chapter 959. G3's teasing made Xia Jinyuan raise his eyebrows slightly. He tapped his fingers lightly on the steering wheel and said calmly, G3, don't think that I don't know about you. Let's go back to China together. I'll go back to the provincial capital, and you'll go to Hongkou City. But didn't you meet your teacher after walking on the mountain roads for a few days and nights? I did. I sneaked into her room to take a look and killed 2 rats before coming out. G3 admitted openly. When Xia Jinyuan asked him to go to Hongkou City, he vaguely guessed what he meant. Since his comrades had given him a chance, how could he let them down? Everyone in the team acted like monks. It wasn't that they didn't like girls, but because of the special nature of their profession, they didn't dare to pursue them. Xia Jinyuan's initiative really taught them a lesson. If they didn't pursue the girl they liked, were they supposed to wait for the girl they liked to put on a wedding dress and marry another man? That was too cruel. You only killed 2 rats and didn't do anything else? You didn't even have physical contact? When Xia Jinyuan saw G3's stiff face from the rearview mirror, he smiled knowingly. He had the intention but didn't have the guts to do it. He had to continue working hard. He had to be like him. He didn't regret his actions and fell head first until he got the girl. When it came to the topic of girlfriends, it had always been a sore spot for his comrades. G3 closed his eyes to rest and didn't want to ask for more trouble from Xia Jinyuan. When Yi Qian got out of the car, he clearly saw a fresh little red mark on her neck. It was bright red. It was obvious that it was planted not long ago. No wonder he was so proud of himself. He even kissed her neck. The all-round soldier king was at the forefront in all aspects. He even had to be at the forefront when it came to girlfriends. Yi Qian was too honest. He had to get J5 to teach her a lesson. How could he always give in to Q King? He had to at least consider his single comrades. After G3 thought about Q King with jealousy, he thought about the girl he liked. After a while, he sighed faintly in the car. K7, I wonder if you regret not going to see a girl properly? Using such a topic to mention his comrade, he seemed to feel that his comrade was right beside him and had not been captured. Xia Jinyuan chuckled and said, No, but I'm sure he'll find a way to fall in love with a girl when he comes back. I think it'll be difficult for K7 to find a girlfriend. He's a clean freak, and he's a soldier. I can't imagine how he'll kiss his girlfriend. K7's obsession with cleanliness was so serious that his comrades in the Snowfield Brigade protested. Once, J5's water bottle ran out, so he took K7's water bottle and poured it into his own. The mouth of the bottle wasn't even a finger's distance away. K7 poured all the water to J5. In the end, he said something that made J5 want to vomit blood. The water with your smell is dirty. J5 flew into a rage and yelled, Why the F***ck would I drink water with your saliva on it? I don't even think it's dirty. That's your problem. What does it have to do with me? K7 replied casually like a fairy. J5 was so angry that he pounded the ground several times. Complaining about the smell of water? I don't have bad breath. K7's obsession with cleanliness was a headache. During training, battles, exercises, and long-term training, there would be times when they didn't have enough water and needed to share some with their comrades. However, K7 would never share. He would rather die of thirst than share water with his comrades. Chapter 960. K7's obsession with cleanliness made G3 and Xia Jinyuan fall silent. After a while, Xia Jinyuan said in a low voice, Do you think this kid will die of thirst? After he said that, the car was silent for a while before G3 sighed and said, It's possible, so we have to speed up. From what I know about him, he doesn't drink water, sleep on the same bed, or eat in the same bowl with others. Damn it. I didn't think anything would happen to him before, but now that he's in trouble, why do I feel like his obsession with cleanliness is going to kill him? Punches and kicks, underwater kicks, snakes, insects, rats and ants, electric shocks, injections of all kinds of drugs, such as cardiac stimulants, capsaicin, and so on. They weren't worried that K7 couldn't handle it, but they were worried that K7 would die because of his obsession with cleanliness. Dying of thirst. It shouldn't be that bad, right? Both of them were thinking silently in their hearts until the G3's phone, which was used to maintain contact with the military, rang. The screen showed that there was no incoming call. Before G3 could say anything, Major General Lu's voice came from the phone. Have you met up with Q King yet? Why did he sound like he was questioning them? What did Q King do to make Major General Lu question him? As a Special Forces soldier, G3's senses were also very sharp. He could tell that something was wrong with one sentence. He looked at Xia Jinyuan and said in a low voice, Sir, Q King is driving. You drive, I have something to tell him. After drinking 3 bowls of cold water, he finally suppressed the anger in his heart. After thinking about it from another perspective, Major General Lu decided not to pursue Xia Jinyuan's disobedience. G3 covered the phone's microphone, leaned back, and asked softly, Q King, what bad things did you do? You made Major General Lu call me to question me. Nothing, I just hung up on Major General Lu. Xia Jinyuan, who had been driving on the left, gradually moved to the right lane. Now that Yi Qian wasn't with him, he had no choice but to answer Major General Lu's call. We're on the highway and need to find a temporary parking spot. Please give us some time. G3 gave Q King, who dared to hang up on the Major General, a thumbs up as he reported their current situation with a serious expression. The Major General grunted and said, Keep in touch. If you dare to hang up on me again, you'll be punished by military law. Fortunately, he was slow and did not hang up. G3, who was rejoicing, was prepared to throw this hot potato out at any time. He really didn't have the guts like Q King to hang up on the Major General. Xia Jinyuan parked the car at the temporary parking spot and took the phone from G3. I'm Q King. Brat, you've got guts? You even dare to hang up on me. The Major General was still breathing fire from his nose, but his voice was relatively gentle. Xia Jinyuan was a proud man. If you really went against him, the more you pushed, the more he would twist you. A tiger had to be pacified. Now, he had to pacify Tiger Xia's fur. The Major General lowered his voice again and advised, I know what you're worried about, but you have to believe in Yi Qian. We all believe in her. Why don't you believe in your own comrade? Yi Qian isn't just anyone. She's your comrade. K7 isn't just anyone either. He's Yi Qian's comrade. Now that K7 is in trouble, Yi Qian won't just stand by and watch. We also hope that she can join us. Why does your brigade need female soldiers? You know the reason. Female soldiers have characteristics that male soldiers don't. She can lower the vigilance of the ST mercenary group and achieve unexpected results. Also, Yi Qian is steady and courageous. The possibility of her being disturbed is very low. With her participating in the rescue, the military has more confidence in your safe return. Chapter 961. Q King, the Snowfield Brigade is the embodiment of our country's blood, sweat, and tears. You are the country's sharp knife. If there is even a small cut on the knife, our heart will ache. War makes women go away is no longer the truth. Sometimes, female soldiers are more powerful than our male soldiers. Actually, the Major General could have just called Yi Qian to join the operation. The reason why he tried to reason with Xia Jinyuan was so that Xia Jinyuan and the others could accept Yi Qian. They shouldn't think that Yi Qian couldn't do it. That was what the Major General thought, but Xia Jinyuan didn't think that way at all. His thoughts were simple. The ST mercenary group was too cruel to the female captives. He could accept Yi Qian's injuries. As a soldier, it was normal for his body to be injured. He could also accept being captured because his military skills were not up to standard. But he definitely couldn't accept the psychological damage. Xia Jinyuan's eyes were filled with coldness. He waited for the Major General to finish his words before he said calmly, Major General, I beg the military ministry to give us a chance to redeem ourselves. I swear on my military uniform that I will try my best to rescue my comrades. I say, you stinking brat, why are you so stubborn? The Major General slammed the table in his office and stood up. He gritted his teeth and said, a soldier's duty is to obey orders. You've forgotten all about it. Xia Jinyuan put one hand on the steering wheel and said casually, Major General, it's not that I don't want to obey orders. Yi Qian is not a soldier. She doesn't need to obey orders. He raised his hand to look at the time and said, "We are still some distance away from the base. We can't waste any more time. I can't chat with you anymore. Don't you dare hang up on me again." In the face of such a stubborn subordinate, the Major General felt that his hair was about to turn white. What the hell? Based on his understanding of Q King, it was impossible for him to refuse such an order that was beneficial to his comrades. Why did he refuse so strongly today? K7 was sent in. For safety reasons, they couldn't send in any more members of the Snowfield Brigade. More importantly, Yi Qian needed to get a list of names from the ST mercenary group. No matter what, Yi Qian must participate in this operation. Fine, since I can't do anything to him, I can only ask Commander-in-Chief Xia to step in. Commander-in-Chief Xia did not object to Yi Qian joining the operation. Let G3 drive, wait for our call. This time, Major General did not give Xia Jinyuan a chance to hang up and hung up the phone first. The G3 was already waiting by the driver's seat. As soon as Xia Jinyuan moved the phone away from his ear, he immediately opened the door and said, "I'll drive. You can rest in the back. How dare you hang up on a Major General? When I get back, I'll write the word, 'convinced,' on a piece of red paper and nominate it for you. I'm not interested in your 'convinced' word. If my little fox writes the word, 'convinced,' I'll put it in a waterproof bag and put it next to my chest to look at every day." Xia Jinyuan pushed open the car door and got out. He seemed to be smiling, but the expression between his brows made G3's heart sink. What did Major General say to make Q King so cold? Hearing this, he immediately mocked back, "You're so useless. Why don't you get a red string and hang the word, 'convinced,' around your neck? That's a good idea. I can even add a bullet case and wear my little fox's authentic calligraphy every day." G3 heaved a sigh of relief. The omnipotent king's skin was already as thick as a brick. No one could win against him in an argument. He then asked casually, changing the topic, "Major General is looking for you. Why did he look for me first?" Chapter 962. I turned off my phone. Xia Jinyuan said calmly. He took out his phone from his pocket and turned it on. G3, who was about to start the car, almost lost his grip on the steering wheel. "Q King, our entire team respects you. You're too strong." Only Q King could have done something as tough as hanging up on the Major General and turning off his phone. Faced with his comrade's praise, the tough Major replied calmly, "Thanks for letting me win." "Thanks for letting me win? We can't have a proper chat." G3 shut up completely and drove the car back onto the highway. The imported Mercedes-Benz performance was pretty good. He stepped on the accelerator and the car sped off. The scenery on both sides of the road flashed by rapidly. In the blink of an eye, they were a few kilometers away from the distant southern province. Xia Jinyuan wasn't in the mood to talk. His fingers unconsciously rubbed his phone. His deep eyes were locked in front of him. He seemed to have something on his mind. It's only 7 in the morning. Little Fox wouldn't have gone to the platoon for training, right? Before getting into the car, he specifically reminded her to rest well, go to the hotel or the library, not to return to school early, and not to rush to the platoon for training. He was afraid that the military wouldn't be able to help him, so he had to change Little Fox's mind. Little Fox wanted to carry out her mission, and the two seniors beside her hoped that she would be able to accomplish something and train at any time. What else did she have to do? She didn't have to do anything, she agreed to everything. At this moment, Xia Jinyuan was silently praying that Yi Qian would either return to the hotel or go to the library. That way, the military wouldn't be able to find him within the day. Their car drove on the highway for at least half an hour. Yi Qian stood on the side of the road until the sun was dazzling. He moved his body slightly and looked at the maple trees on the side of the road. They should be able to return when the maple leaves turn yellow. After standing there for at least 5 minutes, Yi Jian carried her school bag and the bag with her school uniform and walked to the side of the G3 car. She opened the door and started the car. After making a right turn, she turned around and headed in the direction of Caesar Hotel. It was still very early. If she didn't want to go back to school, she might as well go to the training ground. She would drive back and ask Z if she could borrow his car for a day and return it before 6. Ho Z happened to be in a room on the 23rd floor of the Caesar Hotel. She didn't look well and seemed a little gloomy. Last night, he didn't manage to find Xianxia. When he rushed to the Riverside coffee shop where they used to meet, he found out that Xianxia had changed her mind at the last minute. She wasn't in the southern province and had taken a plane back to Beijing, with a man accompanying her. When he received the call from the lobby manager, he happened to be packing his clothes. He was about to kill his way to Beijing to snatch the person. He said to the lobby manager, "You can return it whenever you want. Let her use it without worry. Oil card. Prepare an oil card for her. Keep it in reserve." Xia Jinyuan had done him a huge favor, so he had to take extra care of his girlfriend. He would need Xia Jinyuan's help in the future. Ho Zi quickly borrowed the car, saving Yi Qian a lot of time. When they arrived at the location where Xia Jinyuan had sent her that night, Yi Qian handed the car to the sentry and entered the underground training ground. Lu Tuan and Political Commissar Yen were having a meeting with several instructors. Yi Qian didn't disturb them. Instead, he went to his locker and took out the camouflage uniform from the training ground. He changed into it to hide the injury on his arm and quickly went back to training. After the meeting, Lu Tuan came out and heard that Yi Qian was here. He smiled at Political Commissar Yen and said, "She hasn't trained for more than 10 days. Do you want to see if she's rusty?" Chapter 963. I believe that little Yi won't be out of practice. She hasn't been here for more than 10 days and she's still thinking about it. Political Commissar Yen didn't stop and went straight to Yi Qian's training. She's a natural soldier and can fight. She won't be out of practice, she won't be out of practice. The blowers blew loudly, and the off-road vehicles and sedans sped across the large training ground. The tires screeched as they rubbed against the ground, and the smell of rubber and gasoline filled everyone's nostrils. They didn't find the smell unpleasant, and each and every one of them was focused on wiping away their sweat and training hard. The Great Dragon Country of the late 1990s was no longer the early 1990s where they had to swallow their pride after being wronged overseas. The Great Dragon Country had been dormant all this time, waiting for the 21st century to come and roar again. The reason why China's military power could roar and rise was not only because of the weapons secretly developed by the various bases, but also because of this group of secretly trained, respectable and cute soldiers. Yi Qian drove a jeep this time. She didn't slow down and directly swooped down from a high slope. Then she went over a high platform and rushed past rows of iron nails. She turned the steering wheel tightly and went through a 180-degree turn. Yi Qian was on an S-shaped training path. When she fought with the mercenaries in the hospital, she said that she was a Chinese soldier. The mercenary obviously didn't believe her and even denied that she was a Chinese soldier with a disdainful attitude. He said that Chinese soldiers weren't that powerful. That's right, they didn't think that Chinese soldiers were that powerful. They weren't even as good as the mercenaries. What did this mean? It meant that in their eyes, our country was a weak country. A weak country that couldn't cultivate outstanding soldiers. No wonder they were so arrogant and came all the way here. It was because they looked down on us and took it for granted that our country was a weak country and couldn't do anything to them. Couldn't do anything? It wasn't that our country couldn't do anything to them. It was that we were secretly accumulating military power. One day, we would shock the whole world and let the whole world know what the rise of a great country meant. We have excellent, advanced, and unsurpassable weapons. We also have a group of brave, fearless, and heroic soldiers. The rise of a great country and the awakening of the great dragon. Let's see who still dares to be arrogant. The car passed by in a flash. Regiment Commander Lu sat in the car and looked at the figure that passed by him. He said to Political Commissar Yen, "This girl will finish her apprenticeship in December. It's a pity that we're not an armored unit. Otherwise, we could take her to drive an armored car or a tank. That way, she wouldn't have to wait until she gets into the military academy to go on missions. Haste makes waste. Everything has to be done slowly." Political Commissar Yen was not as anxious as platoon leader Lu. Instead, he hoped that Yi Qian could take each step steadily and lay a solid foundation. A series of gunshots came from the front. It was Yi Qian walking in an S-shaped path. At the same time, he fired at the live targets that were lying in ambush along the S-shaped path. Empty cartridges were fired continuously. Every time a shot was fired, a DDD sound would be heard. Only when a bullet was fired and the shot hit a live target, the sound would be heard. Yi Jian fired a series of shots, and the sound continued to be heard. Needless to say, all of them hit the mark. The car went down the S-shaped path. The brakes were steady and the car stopped precisely at the designated spot. 2 hours of training had made her sweat profusely and her blood boil. She had arrived at the training base at 10 in the morning. It was now 12 in the afternoon. The long-awaited training had ignited all of Yi Qian's passion. If she hadn't seen the final parking spot, she probably wouldn't have let go of the steering wheel. Chapter 964. Lu Tuan and Political Commissar Yen walked over and saw that Yi Qian was still sitting in the car. Not only did she not get out, but her hands were still touching the car. She was reluctant to get out. This made Lu Tuan laugh out loud. He opened the car door and said loudly, "Girl, why are you still not getting out? It's time for dinner. Get out and eat. Rest for a while before you practice again." She was not unfamiliar with it at all. She was very familiar with it. Come. Eat some cabbage and potatoes with us. Don't be so reluctant to get out. You're giving my soldiers a hard time. At least let the male soldiers catch their breaths. She drove the jeep at high speed and took an S-shaped curve. She held the steering wheel with one hand and shot at live targets with the other. She fired a series of blank bullets that made everyone's blood boil. Yi Qian jumped out of the car and said embarrassedly, "I overdid it. I'm not in a hurry to eat. I'll go check on my results first." "Not bad. All your shots hit the forehead, throat, and heart." Political Commissar Yen smiled and looked at Yi Qian. He observed her for a while and asked, "Girl, you're so hard-working. What happened?" Political Commissar Yen was observant. He could tell that something was wrong with Yi Qian. Yi Qian did not know what was wrong with her that Political Commissar Yen noticed. She smiled and said, "When did you get a pair of discerning eyes? You usually start eating when it's time. You're never later than the male soldiers. Today is different. Why do I need to use my discerning eyes? I can tell just by looking at you." Political Commissar Yen narrowed his eyes slightly. After carefully observing Yi Jian's expression, he could not help but frown slightly. "You look a bit angry and thoughtful. What happened, girl?" When Lu Tuan heard this, he also looked at her carefully. There was indeed an angry look in her eyes. "Did you meet someone who needs to be taught a lesson again? Tell me what's on your mind. Don't keep it to yourself." "I didn't meet any difficulties. I'm just angry. It's fine as long as it goes smoothly." Putting aside the matter with Xia Jinyuan and the others, Yi Qian was still upset that the mercenaries thought that the Chinese soldiers were not strong. "How dare you look down on the soldiers of our country?" She didn't want to talk about it. Political Commissar Yen and Regiment Commander Lu looked at each other. There was no hurry. It was not a bad idea to ask later. That's good. Political Commissar Yen gently patted Yi Qian's shoulder and adjusted his collar. He smiled and sighed. "Little Yi, we all want to see you in military uniform as soon as possible. Why don't you skip a grade and directly enter the 3rd year of high school?" When he was in the army, he often told the soldiers that if they had time, they should study more and increase their knowledge. But when she came to Yi Qian, it was the opposite. He felt that studying in school was a waste of time, and that it would be better for her to join the army early. "Just now, you were criticizing me for being too impatient and saying that I had to take things slowly. Now that it's your turn, you're asking Yi Qian to quit his studies and join the army." Regiment Commander Lu glanced at the political commissar who said, "Only the officials can do whatever they want, but not the common people." He said to Yi Qian sternly, "Don't listen to his nonsense. We have to study. Not only do we have to study good books." Political Commissar Yen has been busy recently. His brain is probably a little rusty. He's lying through his teeth. Don't pay attention to him. He was usually lectured by the political commissar. Now that he finally had a chance to lecture the political commissar, How could Regiment Commander Lu let go of such a good opportunity? He seized the opportunity to say all the things that he usually couldn't say. People who do ideological work have a lot of tricks up their sleeves. You're not allowed to read minds. You're misleading people. Chapter 965. We need to study and we can't delay our training. But we need to take care of our bodies. Now we can eat according to the time. How can we miss the time to eat? Yi Qian's eyes turned into crescents when he heard that. It was always Commissar Yen who told Regimental Commander Lu to pay attention to his words. Now that he finally had the chance to lecture Commissar Yen, how could Regimental Commander Lu let it go? I'll give you a chance to lecture me. Stop taking advantage of me. Commissar Yen smiled and shook his head. He said gently to Yi Qian, that's right. You need to study. Learn well before you join the national defense. Let's go. Let's eat first. We can practice in the afternoon. To be honest, Yi Qian really didn't have the mood to eat. It was already midnight. She didn't know if they had arrived at the base or if they had caught the support plane. She also didn't know how they would rescue K7. She couldn't help but think about all these things when she was quiet. She could only forget about them temporarily when she focused on her training. She only hoped that each of them could come back safely. Even if they were injured, it didn't matter as long as they could come back safely. There was an hour-and-a-half break at noon. Yi Qian didn't rest after eating. She put away the plates and chopsticks and walked towards Training Area B. Regimental Commander Lu chased after her. You're too hard-working. I told you to take a break. Why didn't you listen? Yi Qian was drinking water as she walked. When she heard Regimental Commander Lu's question, she quickly turned around. I can't relax. My steering wheel slipped when I was driving on Route S. Also, the soldiers under you will be going to Zongnanhai for a change of camp at the end of December. I need to hurry up and learn more. Regiment Commander Lu's car soldiers would train throughout the year without any breaks. Now that the training of this batch of soldiers had entered the final assessment stage, it was also the most rigorous stage. Learning from them would also be beneficial to improving Yi Qian's ability. Don't give yourself too much pressure. You're not a soldier yet. Commander Lu was just saying that. In reality, he hoped that Yi Qian could excel in all aspects. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come over to monitor Yi Qian's training from time to time. Yi Qian waited for Lu Tuan to come up and continued to walk towards Zone B. He had no intention of stopping. He devoted himself to training so that he could fight back and not think too much about Xia Jinyuan's operation. He then said seriously, although I'm not a soldier now, I've always regarded myself as a real soldier in my heart. If I don't put my life on the line during training, it'll be too late when I really have to. Take advantage of the time when you can to fight for your life. Fight for yourself, fight for your future, and fight for your life. I think that's pretty good. Oh no, the little girl had become like a political commissar. She had a set of words that sounded like a tongue twister. You have class at 7 o'clock. When it's time to rest, you have to take a good rest. You don't really have to risk your life. However, you're right. If we don't work hard during training, it'll be too late when we really have to. Lu Tuan didn't force Yi Qian to rest. It was rare to see a soldier with such a high level of awareness. How could he discourage him? When Yi Qian went to Zone B, Lu Tuan turned back to look for Commissar Yen. The little girl has a lot on her mind. Talk to her. She's used to hiding her thoughts. You can't ask her directly. Old Yen, give her some real advice. I'll find a chance to ask her after training in the afternoon. She'll drive over herself. I'm going to the military headquarters anyway. I'll rush back to the regiment early tomorrow. You don't have to arrange a car to send me. I'll take her car into the city. It had become a habit to go to the military headquarters at the end of the month. Chapter 966. That's fine too. Ask her properly. I don't feel confident seeing her like this. You go and keep an eye on her. I'll go to Area C to take a look. After saying a few words, Lu Tuan adjusted his training cap and strode away. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, Yi Qian's day of training ended. Political Commissar Yen, who had been waiting for a long time, smiled as he watched her complete a few difficult maneuvers to avoid obstacles. He clapped his hands and walked to the front of the dead jeep. The afternoon was more exciting than the morning. You were completely in training mode. The training can't be interrupted. It has to be continuous. I feel much better in the afternoon. Yi Qian jumped out of the jeep. The tall military jeep made Yi Qian look even more petite, but the valiance of the military's red makeup hit her in the face. A green towel was handed over. Here, Political Commissar Yen and Lu Tuan took care of Yi Qian like parents. They would take care of Yi Qian in all aspects. When she smiled and said, "Thank you," and took the towel, Political Commissar Yen said, "Come again tomorrow night. It's getting late. Go change your clothes. I'll take your car into the city today." He could talk to her in the car. She was still young, so she shouldn't be so worried. She should be more angry too. He should ask her clearly what was going on. It was indeed getting late. Yi Qian shrugged and accepted the arrangement without any objections. But her clothes, she really couldn't change. She wiped the sweat off her face and smiled. "Go back to school and change. I'll send you to the provincial military base first and then return the car to someone else. It'll save time to change clothes. Okay. You go up first and ask the sentinel to drive the car over. I'll go get a document." Walking out of the underground training ground, Yi Jian, who made all the male soldiers blush with shame, stood in the sunlight that was as thin as gold powder. Her slightly thin figure stood straight, revealing the piercing coldness of a steel gun. It was autumn, and the scenery outside the area was even more bleak. The autumn wind blew, and the branches of an unknown tree swayed. A few withered leaves were gently blown to the ground, and then a few more leaves fell together. This year's autumn seemed to come quickly. Could the thousands of maple leaves in Mount Daliang wait until Xia Jinyuan came back? Political Commissar Yen, who walked out one step later, looked at the slender figure standing motionless like a sculpture in the golden sunlight. His eyes were a little serious. This girl did have something on her mind, and it was very serious. There were skills in asking questions and trying to get information out of her. Political Commissar Yen was the best at doing ideological work. He did not directly ask Yi Jian if she was unhappy. Instead, he asked her indirectly and found an entry point. Chinese. This question could not be answered in a short time, and it was also a very sharp question. "Do you think our Chinese soldiers are weak?" Political Commissar Yen asked in return. Could it be that Yi Qian had something on her mind because of this? Did someone say that our soldiers were weak in front of her? Yi Qian shook his head. His eyes were firm. "No. I have never thought that our soldiers are weak. Our soldiers have never been weak. We practice and learn every day. We protect our country as protectors. We don't need to prove to anyone that we are strong. The value of our existence is not to prove anything to others." Chapter 967. Why do people say that our soldiers are weak? That's because what they see is a facade. Look at modern warfare. Whether it's developed countries, developing China, or those poor and backward countries, war can break out at any time. Since the end of the Sino-Vietnamese border war in February 1990, our country has been keeping a low profile. We don't want the people to lose their homes and live in misery and suffering. We have been secretly accumulating military strength along the strategic direction of peaceful development. We don't act in a high-profile manner, but we are always ready. We don't take the initiative to fire a single shot, but if there is an attack, our army is ready to fight. If we fight, we will win. We don't need to prove the strength of our soldiers to anyone. We just need to remember that it's not us who are weak, but us who are waiting for an opportunity to strike. If someone says that our soldiers are weak, you can treat them as a mediocre person. If our country's strength is seen through by a mediocre person, then there will be a big problem. Weakness is a facade. How can the rise of a great country be judged by a few words from a mediocre person? As long as Yi Qian didn't come into contact with this, she wouldn't understand it even if she lived another life. Political Commissar Yan's last sentence woke Yi Qian up like a bolt of lightning. That's right. How can the rise of a great country be judged by a few words from a mediocre person? If our country's military strength was seen through by a mediocre person, then it would be a joke. I understand. Thank you, political commissar. Yi Qian saluted the political commissar who had enlightened her. She said calmly, your words made me understand that as a soldier, we don't need to deliberately tell them that we are not weak, and we don't need to care about what those mediocre people say. We just need to remember to hold the steel gun in our hands well. If we call, we will fight. If we fight, we will win. That's right. Our country needs to develop peacefully, and development requires stability. The rise of a great country takes time. As soldiers, we work hard for the rise of our country. We are not weak. We have been training hard. If anyone dares to fire the first shot at our country, the first shot will be when we move out. We will fight to the end to protect our country. Political Commissar Yen didn't mind giving Yi Qian a good lesson. An outstanding soldier must know what our country's strategy was. The country was not weak, and the army was not weak. Wait for an opportunity to strike, and it was earth-shattering. Seeing that Yi Qian's furrowed brows had loosened, Political Commissar Yen smiled and said, in the future, if you encounter any soldiers from other countries who say that our soldiers are weak, I still hope to see you use your fists to tell them who is weak and who is strong. When a scholar meets a soldier, there's no way to reason with him. Why don't we just fight and take them down a notch? Then you'll know what weak means. That was indeed the case. Previously, she had used her fists to show the mercenary who looked down on the Chinese how powerful a female soldier was. Let's see if he still dares to say that Chinese soldiers are weak. However, he didn't have the chance to say anything. He was burned to ashes by Ho Zi's men. If there's a chance, I'll beat him up until he's too ashamed to return to his own army. Yi Qian raised his eyebrows and smiled. He looked up slightly and saw Lu Tuan's secretary jogging over. Political Commissar, Lu Tuan's secretary seems to be looking for you. Reporting. Political Commissar, Lu Tuan asks Yi Qian to come back to the office immediately to answer the call. The person he was looking for was not Political Commissar Yen, but Yi Qian. Moreover, it was an extremely urgent call. It was a call from the military. The person who called was someone who made Yi Qian absolutely terrified and terrified. Commander-in-Chief Xia. Yi Qian said, hello, I'm Yi Qian. The voice coming from the other side of the phone made her immediately stand at attention and relax. Chapter 968. Xiao Yi, you've made us look for you for hours. Commander-in-Chief Xia's voice came from the other end of the phone. He asked her, how have you been? Is everything okay? Yi Qian couldn't help but gulp. She maintained her reporting posture and answered seriously, reporting, everything is fine. Why did I hear from my rascal that you're injured and not well? That rascal probably likes to make a mountain out of a molehill. Yi Qian, who only dared to say this in her heart, maintained her voice and continued to say seriously, I'm slightly injured, but it's not a big problem. Slightly injured? Lu Tuan and Political Commissar Yen, who were standing on either side of Yi Qian, immediately looked at Yi Qian. They didn't see where she was injured. Her neck? She didn't even tie her hair up during training today. Her neck was injured? Lu Tuan glanced at Political Commissar Yen and said softly, no wonder the first thing you said when I received the call was to invite the military doctor over. I thought you were going to ask the military doctor about the injury rate down there. Stop talking. Political Commissar Yen also glanced at his old partner. This was a little strange. Commander-in-Chief Xia nodded with a smile and gestured to Major General Lu. Major General Lu took out his phone and said coldly, Q King, we've already contacted Yi Qian and confirmed that her injuries are minor. She can carry out the mission. No matter how well-mannered Xia Jinyuan was, he couldn't help but curse in his heart. However, his attitude was still very cold. Major General, it's too late now. We've already gotten off the plane and will be heading to the border soon. I won't give up until I reach the Yellow River. Little Fox, we have to be telepathic this time. Don't agree. It was impossible not to agree. He could already foresee that Little Fox would agree immediately. This was also called telepathic. He could even guess what she would say. She would say, okay, I'll leave right away. Too late? No, V8 will be late. Tell him to wait for Yi Qian. As for you, go do whatever you need to do. The Major General hung up and left Xia Jinyuan with a beeping sound. Commander-in-Chief Xia was still chatting with Yi Qian, and he seemed to be quite interested in the conversation. Are you sure your injuries aren't serious? It would be better to let the military doctor take a look. The rascal was used to being injured all over. When he saw other people's injuries, he would think that they were just minor injuries. Let the military doctor take a look. Whether it's serious or not, the doctor has the final say. On the phone, the rascal had said that Yi Qian's arm was about to be broken. Even though she knew that he had said it was serious, she was still scared. Since he had been injured by ST's mercenaries, it was true that they couldn't treat him casually. They had to let the military doctor take a look at him and report the situation. Whether or not Yi Qian could go would depend on how serious her injuries were. The military doctor had already arrived. Yi Qian took off his camouflage jacket and revealed a section of white gauze on his arm. It was already overflowing with dried brown blood. The military doctor took out the gauze and scissors and carefully examined it. He said, "You didn't hurt the skin. It's really not serious. It's just a minor injury. No matter what, it would require at least 5 stitches to be considered a serious injury." Commander-in-Chief Xia confirmed that it was a serious injury and began to talk about business. He first asked Yi Qian to ask Regiment Commander Lu and Political Commissar Yen to leave. Then he began to talk about the operation. "I'm sure you know that this operation is mainly to rescue K7. However, we received news that ST's mercenaries have a name list. This name list is very important. We hope that this name list will be kept by our country. We know where the name list is, but it's very difficult to enter ST's mercenaries. If we have female soldiers to support us, not only will we be able to help them rescue K7 as soon as possible, we might also be able to get the name list and bring it back to China." Chapter 969. We have female soldiers, but none of them have worked with Xia Jinyuan before. Yi Qian, the military hopes that you can temporarily drop your studies and support them. What do you think? Don't be in a hurry to agree. The military has the responsibility to tell you what kind of existence the ST Mercenary Corps is. Commander-in-Chief Xia would not let Yi Qian go to the front line without knowing anything. He had to make it clear to her and let her understand the danger of the mission. Only by understanding the danger could she better avoid it and protect herself. The ST Mercenary Corps is a group of mercenaries who value money over life. Their top organizer has close ties with a country in South Asia and has the support of the government. They are hired to carry out all kinds of assassinations, kidnappings, and battles. The source of the mercenaries is mainly from South Asia and Namibia. They have a reserve force of thousands and have hired military experts to train the mercenaries. The phone call lasted for a long time, mainly because Commander-in-Chief Xia wanted to tell Yi Qian what kind of existence the ST Mercenary Corps was. In 1994, the ST Mercenary Corps sent out a mercenary force with air protection and armor. It only took a few days for them to quell the danger in a certain country. In 1991, a civil war broke out in Sierra. The anti-government forces attacked fiercely, and the government forces hired the ST Mercenary Corps. Within a few months, the anti-government forces were utterly defeated. There were more than 1 or 2 incidents about the ST Mercenary Corps. Just these few incidents made Yi Qian understand how difficult it was for Xia Jinyuan to rescue K7 from the ST Mercenary Corps. These are national affairs. The ST Mercenary Corps is notorious for being inhumane, especially when it comes to female captives. They torture them physically and mentally. Yi Qian, I'll give you 10 minutes to consider. You can choose to refuse. This morning, the Major General contacted Xia Jinyuan and told him about the military's proposal. However, he strongly rejected it. I'm guessing that he didn't mention it to you. Commander-in-Chief Xia did not leave Yi Qian with no choice. Instead, he gave the choice to Yi Qian and let her make the decision herself. As for whether Yi Qian would choose, Commander-in-Chief Xia already knew the answer. At 5 o'clock, the sun was setting in the west. The faint golden light shone on the entire Ta County, enveloping it in a golden world. Xia Jinyuan watched as the blood-red sun gradually disappeared into the clouds. His handsome face, which looked like it had been dyed with gold powder, was piercingly cold. If Commander-in-Chief Xia stepped forward, he would give Yi Qian a chance to choose. But in reality, he already had an answer in mind. Drink some water. Maybe there will be a turn for the better. G3 handed over the newly bought mineral water. His gravelly voice was a little heavy. Maybe she won't agree. If he were to agree to something like this, Yi Qian's guts would be so big that he could pierce through the heavens. But being a soldier required guts. Without guts, one would be a coward. If he really agreed, G3 would concede defeat. Xia Jinyuan took the bottle of water, twisted the cap open, and drank a few mouthfuls. The water flowed from the corner of his mouth, down his chin, and down to his neck. It had the rough and sexy taste of a man. He said in a low voice, "When Commander-in-Chief Xia steps forward, there's nothing he can't accomplish. Yi Qian, I know her. Even if Commander-in-Chief Xia doesn't exist, she will still agree to the military's request. So, I've already accepted the truth and am ready to welcome her." G3 raised his eyebrows in surprise. "You resisted so strongly before, why did you suddenly accept it? Didn't everything you did before become useless?" Xia Jinyuan said calmly, "Brother, how can I go against the military with my own strength? A wise man submits to circumstances. If I resist again, I'll be labeled as disobeying orders. It will make me lose all face and make my little fox laugh at me." Chapter 970. Xia Jinyuan adjusted his clothes elegantly. He went from strong opposition to acceptance and said in a very noble manner, "Since my strong opposition is ineffective, I'll just adapt." F***CK. Your ability to adapt is too strong. G3 muttered in his heart, then slowly said, "You've adapted, but I haven't. Let me take a breather first. Thinking about asking Yi Qian to go on a mission with us, I feel a little pressured." Q King adapted and accepted. He, who just found out, hadn't. "Don't worry, there's still time for you to take a breather. We'll march at 5:40 in the morning. The two of us will find a place to take a nap and leave a mark for our brothers to find us." Xia Jinyuan, who had an extraordinary ability to adapt and accept, said cheerfully. It was impossible to tell from his handsome face that he was so adamant about not letting Yi Qian come over that he hung up the phone and turned off his phone. The military had to go around G3 to find him. He was so adamant before, but now? How could anyone tell that he had objected before? G3 looked up. "Can you sleep?" "Why can't I sleep? The black cars can't come over for a while, and our brothers didn't come over either. I'll sleep if I can." Xia Jinyuan smiled and walked out of the bus station. When they got off the plane and came to the bus station, they didn't find a regular car to leave the country. Instead, they found a black car. A black car was good, but it took a little longer. G3 looked at his back and was a little amazed. "Why can't I sleep?" Was there a need to ask? Yi Qian was going on such a dangerous mission with them. Wasn't he worried? G3 caught up with him and didn't say anything else. What was done, and there was no turning back. It was good that Yi Qian joined. It was easier for him to get into the ST mercenary group. As a soldier, there were many things that had to be accepted unconditionally without a choice. Xia Jinyuan had already understood the uniqueness of his profession. Since he had to accept it without a choice, then he would accept it. He would accept the person he loved unconditionally, go into dangerous places with him, and fight together with him. The person he loved had the same faith as him. He would fight for his faith and share the glory with her. The last ray of the setting sun disappeared, and the sky finally darkened. Yi Jian, who had been speeding all the way from the southern province, got on the highway at 6:30 in the evening. Her speed was so fast that the cars she overtook were amazed. His speed was so fast that he could not even see the car in front of him in the next second. She rushed to the base and took a transport plane to meet up with Xia Jinyuan, who was already waiting for her in Ta County. Time was tight, so she didn't even go back to school. She didn't even ask for leave from her teacher and drove all the way to the base. If they missed the time set by the military, The next transport plane would have to wait until the next day. K7 was still waiting to be rescued. She could not wait until tomorrow. Principal Chen already knew that Yi Qian had gone to war again. After he finished the call, he sat quietly for about half an hour. Principal Chen chuckled softly and then sighed softly, "Girl, you have to work hard." The military only said that girl Yi had to leave school for a period of time, and the date of her return was uncertain. The date of her return was uncertain. Principal Chen picked up the calendar on the desk, picked up a red pen, and made a tick on the date of October 19th. From today onwards, he would wait for girl Yi to come back. He also had to ask for leave from school for her. What excuse should he use? Chapter 971. He didn't know how dangerous this mission was. Although he and Uncle Jen were training Yi Qian to be a Special Forces soldier, it was inevitable that they would be worried if they encountered a mission with an uncertain return date. It was a good thing that the military valued Yi Qian, and it was also what he and Uncle Jen hoped for. However, if they really sent their own child to the front line, they would be reluctant and worried. After all, he was young and inexperienced. He couldn't be compared to a professionally trained Special Forces soldier. He only hoped that Yi Qian could successfully complete the mission and return to the country safely. The military didn't say what mission Yi Qian participated in, but Principal Chen used to be a world-class sniper and had carried out countless infiltration missions. He could see the danger of the mission just by looking at the uncertain return date. Principal Chen was responsible for the school, so Yi Qian didn't have to worry about it. At 8:14 p.m., Yi Qian parked her car outside the base. A sentry trotted over with a gun on his back. They had already been notified that they needed to quickly let in a car from the southern province. After the sentry saluted, he took Yi Qian's identification from the provincial military and her student ID. 3 minutes later, he confirmed that Yi Qian's identity was correct and waved his arm to open the valve. Yi Qian, who couldn't even say, "Thank you," in a hurry, calculated the valve's opening speed in her mind. When her car sped past, the valve's opening width was just enough for the car to pass through. There was only a gap of 1 centimeter between the left and right sides. Looking at the car speeding into the base, the sentry carried 5 live bullets on his shoulder and muttered, "Amazing! It's like a fighter jet missile hitting the ground. It hit the target perfectly." From the southern province to the base, Yi Qian precisely timed the journey down to the second. She didn't take a sip of water or rest for even a second. At 8:25 p.m., she was ready to board the transport plane to meet up with Xia Jinyuan. Xia Jinyuan's boarding time was 8 in the morning. Yi Qian received the call at 5 in the afternoon, which was the time when Xia Jinyuan got off the plane and arrived at the bus station. Therefore, Yi Qian now boarded the plane at 8:30 a.m. After an 8-hour flight and an hour-long car ride, it would take another 9 hours to meet up with Xia Jinyuan. They would arrive at 5:30 a.m. She would arrive at 5:30 p.m., which was enough time for Xia Jinyuan and the others to get some sleep and rest up while waiting for her. It was difficult to fall asleep on the transport plane even if she wore earmuffs with good sealing. Yi Jian forced herself to fall asleep for 4 hours. When she opened her eyes, it was already 4 o'clock in the morning. There was still half an hour before the transport plane would arrive at the landing point. Yi Qian, who was awake, looked down through the window of the plane. It was pitch black, and there was not even a single light. They were flying over a mountain range, so it was normal that they couldn't see any lights. The landing location was a field airport. As the speed of the transport plane decreased and the angle changed, the pilot reminded the plane to prepare for landing. The power was slowly decreasing, and the whole process took less than 3 minutes. The transport plane won't be late. It should be here by now. 6 young men, who were dressed differently and looked a little frivolous, sat together in the dark. They looked casual, but in fact, their eyes were like eagles, constantly observing their surroundings in the dark. The man who spoke had a handsome baby face, mainly because of his big and bright eyes. He didn't look old, but he also looked harmless. T6, the elite soldiers selected from the military. They looked harmless on the surface, but when they were ruthless, they could kill until their eyes turned red. Chapter 972. From time to time, he would raise his head to look in the direction of the bus station to see if the shabby car from the field airport had arrived. In V8's words, was this guy thinking of Yi Qian? Xia Jinyuan glanced at the time. It was 5:20 in the morning, so he should be arriving soon. The sound of a car could be heard. The six of them raised their heads almost at the same time and looked in the direction of the car. He's here. Yi Qian had arrived. Dressed in camouflage, he appeared more military-like than the six people who had come to greet him. It turned out that the five of them had done the same thing. They subconsciously adjusted their collars and tugged at the hem of their clothes, waiting for Yi Qian to come over as if they were waiting for a review. Except for Xia Jinyuan, his comrades were waiting in place. As for him, he held a large backpack filled with thick clothes and went over to greet him. We meet again less than 24 hours after we parted, little fox. It was unclear if he did it on purpose, but his tall figure blocked the view of the people behind him. When Commander-in-Chief Xia is involved, there is no target that he can't take down. Little fox, you're really brave. Yi Qian took the large backpack from the man who was dressed like a traveler. He raised his eyebrows and said with a half-smile, "If you had told me this morning, I wouldn't have been so nervous and would have come over together. That would have saved me 9 hours. It was different then. Let's go and get to know our brothers. You know G3, T6, V8, and Z7, but there is one more comrade that you haven't met." Xia Jinyuan immediately changed the topic, in case she wanted to settle the score with him later. He opened the backpack and took out a thick coat for her. "You must be cold. Put on the coat first." "A little, but it's still okay. Let's go. Don't let them wait too long." Yi Qian put on the thin coat inside. It was much warmer to wear a windproof coat. Xia Jinyuan zipped up the coat for her. His eyes were full of tenderness. This little fox. She really dared to come. He tried his best to stop her, but it still ended up like this. "Then, my lover, my comrade, it's time for us to protect each other's lives." Z7's Han Zheng had already waved at Yi Qian, but unfortunately, he was blocked by Xia Jinyuan. When Yi Qian came over, he stood up and said, "He's not nice. He's deliberately blocking our enthusiasm. I'm giving you time to tidy up your clothes. Don't let Yi Qian see your ugliest side." Xia Jinyuan retorted with a good reason. He said to a man who was about 186 meters tall, "Pigeon, he was in charge of the leader's internal security last time." "Hello, Yi Qian. I've met you before. You're a very outstanding female soldier. I'm looking forward to fighting alongside you." It was 5:30 in the morning and the sky was still dark. Yi Qian was stunned by Dove's voice when he opened his mouth. His voice was so pleasant to the ears. Just like the ancient musical instrument, sun, one sentence had an elegant softness and a touch of sadness. It would make people want him to say a few more words so that they could savor his voice. "Hello, I'm Yi Qian. It's my goal to be able to fight alongside you." Yi Qian reached out and shook his hand gently, then politely let go. "That's why I'm here to pursue my goal." This was the first time he heard a girl say that her goal was to fight with the special forces. Surprise was written all over Dove's face. It was so strange. Fighting as her goal. Wasn't she a little too courageous? Chapter 973. How is it? I told you Yi Qian is interesting, didn't I? The 8 raised his hand and put it on Pigeon's shoulder. He smiled until his white teeth looked like a beast's teeth under the faint sky. It was fine when he didn't smile, but when he smiled, he gave off a ferocious aura. Pigeon looked at Yi Qian for a while and smiled. "You are indeed interesting." Pigeon was a special forces soldier. He joined the army because he had a good voice. After singing a song, he immediately became a special forces soldier. Xia Jinyuan, who was beside him, sensed Yi Qian's surprise at his voice. He chuckled and said, after that, it took him a year to get back to the position he wanted. In the army, he first became a special forces soldier, and then a special forces soldier. He became the most incredible member of the Snowfield Brigade. That was indeed incredible. Yi Qian pursed his lips and smiled. That was my dark history. I applied to go to the border, but I was screwed by my own voice. When I received the notice of enlistment, My parents laughed and I cried. Pigeon was a talkative person. He was the assaulter and explosives expert in the army. Yi Qian did not know him, but he had heard of Yi Qian. Therefore, he did not feel unfamiliar when they talked. He had met his other comrades before and had even fought side by side. When they met again, they both punched Yi Qian. They smiled at each other and felt an indescribable sense of familiarity. At 5:30 p.m., the small county was still asleep. Even the street lamps on the narrow streets were lit up, making the small county seem even quieter. It was as if the night had just begun. The sound of a truck came from afar, breaking the silence at the station. The truck is here. Cover Yi Qian and get on. Xia Jinyuan raised his hand slightly. G3 quickly picked up the travel bag and ran towards the truck that flashed 3 times. They stumbled as they ran, as if they were not fully awake. They were not very fast either, which made the driver in the truck curse in a low voice. Now, they were bold stowaways who wanted to make money from the war. The truck driver had seen many such people. When he saw them, he counted them and took the money from Xia Jinyuan. He pointed at the back of the truck and said arrogantly, "There are 6 seats in the middle for you. Listen, you are not allowed to move my goods. Do you hear me?" His Chinese was not good. Based on his accent, it was obvious that he was a local. The 6 of them carefully tried to please him and said softly, "We know, we know." The bearded driver glanced at the 6 of them with what he thought was a fierce gaze and snorted softly. Until the truck started moving again, the driver didn't notice that there was an extra person in the truck. Taking advantage of the fact that it was still dark, he headed towards Princess Castle. A total of 8 of our comrades went to Operation Storm. K7 was captured, J5 was injured and hospitalized. Now, the 6 of us, including you, are going to St. Xia Jinyuan first told Yi Jian the number of people in the previous operation. Then he spread a map on a nylon bag that was filled with something unknown. He drew on the map with his finger and said, "From here, follow the Zhongba Highway for 60 kilometers and enter the Karachi Ancient Mountains. There is a border guard post in the middle. We need to hide here." After leaving the Karachi Ancient Mountains, the truck will go directly over the frozen river. 30 kilometers to Princess Castle, then enter the Wakan Corridor. As Xia Jinyuan pointed out the route one by one, the 6 of them looked solemn. The Wakan Corridor was their only way out. The Wakan Corridor is about 400 kilometers long. The truck driver can only send us out of the 100-kilometer Wakan Corridor that belongs to the Chinese side. We need to find our own way out of the remaining 300 kilometers. Chapter 974. Q King, we have to find a shorter route for a 300-kilometer journey. Otherwise, it's impossible to make it on foot. Xia Jinyuan glanced at the T6 combatant who asked the question and smiled faintly. "That's true, so I asked around and found out that there's a place where we can go." He pointed at the mountain range on the map. "We'll go from here. Someone will lead the way for us." Several pairs of eyes stared at the mountain range he pointed at. They needed to hike up an iceberg 6,000 meters above sea level and cut into the desert country where the ST Mercenary Corps was located as quickly as possible. The time is 1 day, 24 hours. What do you think? When he finished speaking, Xia Jinyuan's gaze slid past Yi Qian's face. "Little fox, you chose a mission that was difficult from the beginning. Do you regret it?" "Regret?" Yi Qian's lips curled into an extremely light smile, and there was a hint of provocation in his eyes. Major Xia, when she was running for her life, her endurance, leg strength, and perseverance had been accumulated over 2 lifetimes. Climbing icebergs was no problem for her. In the days in the no man's land, she and Principal Chen had climbed icebergs and snowy peaks the most. Sometimes, they would walk through the snow all night while carrying a 13-kilogram sniper rifle on their backs. That was how she got through it. After preparing for so many years, no, it could be said that she had been preparing from her previous life to this life. She had walked through her previous life with tears of blood. Even if there was a way out, she would still look down on herself. Receiving her provocative gaze, Xia Jinyuan's thin lips curled up slightly. Good girl, the more she fought, the braver she became. Can we choose to ride a horse? Look for a Kyrgyz rider? Han Zhang, who was holding a flashlight, whispered, "We can ride a horse first. At least it'll save us some time." G3 shook his head and said, "The ST Mercenary Corps is a disaster in the eyes of the civilians. We can't bring disaster to them. I'm in favor of walking. Also, the iceberg is not suitable for riding a horse." "No, I mean to ride a horse in the walking corridor. We can borrow the local nomads' horses." Before Han Zheng could finish his sentence, G3 interrupted him. "The walking corridor belongs to the high and cold mountains. Every year, except for the 3 months of June and August, the mountain is covered by heavy snow. The nomads' horses have already been fenced up and raised. Where can we borrow them? Even if we do, the horses won't be able to pass through the deep snow. In the end, we'll be wasting our own time. We have no choice but to hike the iceberg." "That's right, so we have no choice. Right now, there's a civil war in this country, and the savagery of the ST Mercenary Corps makes the civilians even more afraid. Choosing to walk on foot can hide our identities, and we won't implicate the civilians." V.H. Chenling said. The storm mission was not in the battlefield that they were heading to. This time, in order to rescue them, they had entered the war-torn countries that the soldiers of various countries did not want to enter easily. Therefore, caution became the first choice for everyone. The strategy of this rescue operation was to not alarm or implicate them, to only ambush them, and to quickly retreat. Han Zheng's expression turned solemn as he nodded and said, "All right, I agree to walk. I'm in favor of walking. I'm in favor of walking." Several voices rang out in succession, low and steady. Yi Qian's voice was also among them. Xia Jinyuan did not ask Yi Qian if they could walk the iceberg at night. There was no need to ask at this time. Since they were here, they had to accept the hardships and dangers of the conditions without any conditions. He had already sorted out the entire route, and the follow-up arrangements and operations had all been drawn up. In the shaking truck, the low voice clearly reached everyone's ears. "We need to disguise ourselves as locals. After entering the war zone, we need to quickly count our equipment, enter the black market to buy weapons, and rent a car to go to Registan." Chapter 975. His voice was low, like a moving blade. It was frighteningly sharp. G3, Z7, V8, T6, and Pigeon all listened with serious expressions. They didn't miss a single word he said. "We need at least 3 days on the road. K7 won't give us that much time. We also don't think that the ST mercenaries and the government behind them will have enough patience to deal with K7. So, we don't have much time. We can't delay the progress of the entire team because of personal problems. Do you understand?" "Understood." Several voices came in unison. Their morale was high, and there wasn't a trace of fear in them. Yi Qian's dark eyes reflected the cold light of the flashlight. It was as if a thin layer of frost had been dyed in his eyes. "Yi Qian, you're in charge of infiltration. The military will send someone to bring you into Saint. You only have 2 days. One day, find out the exact location of K7's imprisonment. One day, find out where the name list is. The remaining day, launch a sneak attack. Everyone will retreat the next morning." After Xia Jinyuan finished speaking, he looked up at Yi Qian. There was no longer any gentleness in his deep eyes. There was only impartiality and coldness. He didn't give Yi Qian any special treatment because of her identity. "Is there a problem, Yi Qian?" "No, I'll listen to the command." Yi Qian's expression was cold and resolute. He didn't hesitate to answer. Since he chose to come, how could there be a problem? Uncle Chen said that the moment you picked up a sniper rifle, Yi Qian, you had no way out. You could only move forward. The firm and fearless voice fell into the ears of the male soldiers. It was like a touch of coolness on a hot summer day. It had a wonderful effect on everyone's spirits. G3 and the others were fine. They had worked with Yi Qian many times. They knew that the young but military-like Yi Qian was definitely a trustworthy comrade. No one was more surprised than Pigeon. She was already surprised when she said that she was chasing after the target. Now, she didn't feel any pressure at all. Instead, Her calm tone shocked him even more. He had never worked directly with Yi Qian before, so he didn't feel unfamiliar with Yi Qian when they first met. It was all because Yi Qian had the same military aura as them. At this moment, they vaguely understood why their comrades who had fought side by side with Yi Qian were looking forward to her joining them. This kind of girl, this kind of female soldier, this kind of outstanding, this kind of courage, to be able to fight side by side with her was indeed something to look forward to. He was looking forward to seeing her brilliance, looking forward to seeing her outstanding performance, and even more so looking forward to seeing her return from the flames of war with them. This is Yi Qian, a true soldier and our comrade. The T6 combatant nudged the surprised G3 with his shoulder and said with a chuckle, "A true comrade isn't a comrade who wears the same uniform. They were comrades who dared to go through life and death with them, who dared to risk their lives for them, and who had the courage to trade my life for yours." Pigeon's gaze made Yi Qian look over, and the two of them looked at each other. His cold gaze also allowed Yi Qian to clearly see the appearance and characteristics of Pigeon, whose code name was different from Q King and the others. He had a very good-looking and dashing eyebrow that made Yi Qian take a second look at him. At first glance, his facial features didn't look very outstanding, but after looking at him for a long time, he felt like he was a very outstanding man. He looked like a soldier from a painting who had gone to war and had a reserved temperament. The two of them smiled and looked away. Pigeon said, "Her gaze is very sharp, and she vaguely has the cold aura of Q King. Why do I feel that if she were to join our team, there would be a possibility of two kings standing side by side?" Chapter 976. The members of the Shuiyu Brigade, who used letters and numbers as code names, were in charge of sudden attacks, while the members of the Shuiyu Brigade, who used Chinese as code names, were in charge of sneak attacks. The combination of the two groups was a double-edged sword for China. The Snowfield Brigade had yet to have a king, so far. Seeing Yi Qian's attitude, Pigeon suddenly felt emotional. However, Xia Jinyuan suddenly looked up and glanced at her coldly. He narrowed his eyes slightly, as if reminding Pigeon not to say anything more. His gaze made Pigeon straighten her back and she immediately stopped talking. It was best not to talk about things that had yet to be revealed. The truck was loaded with supplies that needed to be transported to Princess Castle, so the space for the 7 of them was very limited. However, it was good that they didn't have to lie down. They had to memorize the entire map. If they accidentally fell off the ice mountain, they could still get up and find the rendezvous point. Xia Jinyuan and G3 were already familiar with each other, so he passed the military map to Han Zheng for him to memorize first. The rest of them could rest for the time being. Yi Qian was the last to receive the map. After receiving it, he passed the flashlight and map directly to Xia Jinyuan. He asked in a low voice, "I will also hand over the firing point of the ST mercenaries as soon as possible. Q King, who will contact me when the time comes? Or, can I send it to someone else?" Just now, Xia Jinyuan had spread out the map and Yi Qian had already memorized it. "No, no one can contact you. You can only send it to the designated location. Yi Qian, your time is even more urgent than ours. It's very, very urgent." Xia Jinyuan pursed his thin lips. His eyes were as dark as the night sky. There was only endless darkness. "I will also go in with you and be in charge of the rescue deployment of K7. Yi Qian, once we enter ST, if you are in danger, I may not be able to rescue you in time. But remember, we will not give up on any of our comrades." Yi Qian smiled and said, "We are going to rescue K7. How can we let ourselves be discovered? We will come back together." Han Zheng, who was lying on his stomach, reached out a hand and placed it on top of the nylon bag. Then, several large hands were placed on top of each other. Finally, Xia Jinyuan took Yi Qian's hand and placed it on the back of his own hand. His deep voice was as cold as a steel gun. "I won't give up on any of them. I won't give up on any of them. I won't give up on any of them." 7 low and shallow sounds came from the bumpy truck. "We are comrades. We are fighting to save our comrades. We are not giving up on any of them." He would definitely not give up on any of them. Xia Jinyuan glanced sideways at Yi Qian and said with a smile, Your challenge will begin tomorrow at noon. I look forward to every new challenge, especially with all of you. It's very rare. Yi Qian's expression did not have the slightest hint of gloominess. Instead, his eyes sparkled with a dazzling brilliance, as if they were filled with water. When he saw the other 5 people, he was slightly stunned. Then, he silently shifted his gaze away. A good girl will always belong to someone else. As the flashlight suddenly went off, Xia Jinyuan sighed. Then, his warm lips gently kissed Yi Qian's cheek. Are you stupid? Why did you chase after us? Because all of you are my targets. I'm chasing after my targets. Yi Qian's fearless laughter came from the darkness. It was faint and gentle, and it floated into Xia Jinyuan's ears. Then, it slowly fell into his heart and was engraved in his heart. The girl he liked was just that outstanding. She used her own fearlessness to write a magnificent legendary poem. Her name would not be forgotten with time, even if 100 years had passed. Chapter 977. Yi Qian didn't expect him to be so bold as to turn off the flashlight and kiss her in front of so many comrades. She glared at him in the dark and wanted to move away from him, but there was only so much space. He was on her right, and G3 was on her left. If she moved, she would have to move closer to G3. Yi Qian had no choice but to bury her head under her arm to prevent another kiss. Not only did he steal a kiss, Major Xia, who was acting like a boyfriend in the dark, put his arm around Yi Qian's shoulder and let her lean on him. Rest for a while. At least you can lie down. Yi Qian froze. He was so stiff that he didn't dare to move at all. He even held his breath, afraid that his 5 comrades would notice something. This bastard! How dare he! Not only that, his warm lips were pressed against Yi Qian's earlobe, and his breath was hot. Old Luo, who brought us into the iceberg, told me to give you more money and suffer less. Brothers, the money you took out just now won't be reimbursed. You know that the money a man saves is for his wife. Remember to return it all to me. It's not much, just 5 fingers. I'm sleeping. Wake me up when we reach. I don't think we've reached the plateau yet. Why do I have altitude sickness and tinnitus? You too? Me too. Do you want to take some pills? I'm already deaf. I can't hear what you said just now. After the 4 people in front of them finished talking, they heard faint snoring sounds. G3 seemed to have slept for a long time. If *CK, this is a real master. 4 pairs of eyes looked over at the same time. They all agreed that G3 was too cunning. Yi Qian buried his head in his arms and laughed until his shoulders trembled. It would be difficult for Xia Jinyuan to get back the money he took out from his personal wallet. Who would want to marry him and be his wife? Dream on. Just as he thought this, he heard Xia Jinyuan's soft voice that only the 2 of them could hear. You have to marry me and be my wife. There are 5 of them. Each of them is 500 yuan, so 2,500 yuan. It's all for my wife's money. If I don't get it back, my heart will ache. What should I do? My heart aches. Why don't you rub it for me? My heart won't ache anymore if I rub it. At a time like this, Yi Qian was even more helpless against him. She couldn't do anything to him when they were together. Now that there were so many people around, she couldn't do anything to him. Sleep. Ignore her. Fortunately, Xia Jinyuan knew the gravity of the situation and didn't say anything more. His fingers on her shoulder tightened slightly, and his deep eyes were dark and turbulent, as if the sky had changed color and the sea had surged with waves, vaguely containing a ferocious force that could destroy the world. Follow in our footsteps, little fox. You will become a very outstanding female special forces soldier, the best in the military. After at least 10 minutes, when Yi Qian was about to fall asleep, Xia Jinyuan suddenly said, I'm waiting for you to become my comrade-in-arms, a comrade-in-arms who can really fight side by side with me and command the battle. Yi Qian's gaze paused for a moment, and he finally lifted his head from the crook of his arm. Aren't we comrade-in-arms now? We are comrade-in-arms now, but not the kind of comrade-in-arms I want. I want a comrade-in-arms who can stand at the same height, in the same position, and who can sweep away thousands of enemies. Xia Jinyuan said softly, "This is the kind of comrade in arms I want. I want you to become this kind of comrade in arms. Can you do it, Yi Qian?" His gaze was close to Yi Qian's. Although he couldn't see, Yi Qian could feel it. Chapter 978. That gaze was like a pair of hands that forced you to move forward and not back down. It also gave you the feeling that you had boarded a pirate ship and couldn't get off. "Don't give up, don't abandon me. I will always take you with me. I will never let go of your hand even if we have to overcome all obstacles until we reach a height that belongs to both of us. Do you dare to continue like this with me? For me, for you, for the sake of not letting down this life, do you want to continue like this?" Originally, he wanted to give her some time to slowly understand him, to let her know what kind of unit he was in, but it seemed like that was no longer possible. She knew in advance how dangerous the situation he was facing was, so he had no choice but to bring it up quickly so that she could understand and accept it as soon as possible. Yi Qian didn't say anything. She didn't know how to continue. One thing was for sure. Even if he wasn't holding her hand, she wouldn't let down this life. He was her goal, and she once wanted to surpass him. And now, this goal was telling her that he wanted to bring her to the same position, to the same height. Think about it. It wasn't that it was difficult to think about. Instead, it was that a flood had formed in her heart. She couldn't calm down, and her entire body was boiling up. In her previous life, she was mediocre for too long. In this life, there were so many opportunities, and she didn't want to miss any of them. She didn't want to lose any of them. Yi Qian nodded, gently, and then slowly nodded. He said, "Okay, but I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this for myself, so that I won't let down this life. I'll stand beside you, and you'll stand beside me. The same place, the same height. We'll be comrades for life. Comrades for life, brothers for life. Never leave, never abandon, never give up." All the members of the Snowfield Brigade swore that they would be comrades for life. No matter what, they would never give up on their comrades. Never leave, never abandon, never give up. K7, who was tied up and tossed in the corner, raised his eyes slightly and looked towards the narrow window. Someone was coming. Not just one, but more than 10 people. The footsteps got closer and stopped outside. K7 closed his eyes again, pretending that he was still unconscious. It was useless even if he opened his eyes. Blood flowed into his eyes and stained his eyelashes, blurring his vision. He even saw double when he looked outside. The next day, other than drinking a mouthful of water, the captives did not eat anything else. It had been 52 hours since he woke up from his coma and struggled to open his eyes that were covered with blood. There was no interrogation or interrogation. It was so peaceful that he could not hear any clues, nor could he determine whether his comrades were coming. K7 was heavily injured. Even so, ever since he woke up, he had been on high alert. He had been looking for a chance to escape, and he had been trying to figure out a way to escape. The only weapon he had on him was the belt that was still tied to his trousers. However, this thing had no way of cutting the rope. It was more like strangling someone's neck. His ragtag military uniform was torn in many places, and his flesh was covered with fine sand. As he breathed, the fine sand seemed to be grinding against his charred flesh. No matter how strong his body was, if the fine sand was not washed out, there was no hope for his wounds to heal. K7, who hadn't moved for 52 hours, moved his head slightly. It was this slight movement that made people feel like he was still alive. Welcome to Legends of Cultivation audiobooks, where we bring ancient fantasy to life through storytelling. Follow the rise of heroes who defy fate, unlock mystical powers, and battle across celestial realms. Our audiobooks are crafted for fans of Chinese cultivation novels, filled with battles, breakthroughs, and legendary artifacts. Subscribe and be part of an unforgettable journey into the realm of immortality.